Hey there. So yesterday had a friend come over and he'd never done any kind of casting. And he had a couple of pieces that he wanted to make copies of because he didn't have the originals to duplicate. So there was an arm from a miniature that he'd lost to the carpet monster, and another like little piece for the bottom of a tank turret. And he wanted to learn how to do casting. So he knew that I have been and had done some. So he came over and I walked him through how to create the mold and actually setting up, making a mold of the parts. However, because of time frame and stuff, we didn't get a chance to actually do the pouring and the casting of it. So what I am doing here for him is this is the actual pour. So once the mold had cured and finished, we were ready to actually pour the cast. So this is the video, or this is a video, sort of a record of what I did to get his pieces made for him. I expect we'll probably get together at some point later to do it again so that he can get some hands on. But here it is, and basically all this is doing is using Smoothcast 300, which is a fast set, and I will talk about all that stuff here in a moment. So here we'll go down to the bench and I'll show you what I did.
So here we go. Going to use Smoothcast 300. I like this, and here's why. Looking at the work time, your pot life's 3 minutes, cure time's about 10, so it sets up pretty fast. Doing this little application, that's just fine. Matter of fact, it's better than fine, it's good. I like the fact that it does not take long for this stuff to get going. And, hey, there we go. So get on gloves. Now what I do is I'm going to take a cup and I'm going to pour some of part A into a cup marked part A, and then I will do the same. Now here we have a problem. These bottles are about a year old. I use them sparingly, and part A, even when you clean off the pour spout, this happens. So if you end up using and then letting it sit and then doing whatever, prepare to have a pair of channel locks around so that you can do this, so you can get the lid off. So yeah, you're going to see me struggle with this for just a little bit while I work at getting this thing off. But once you get it off, it'll be fine. And then, later it'll, the next time I use it, I'm going to have to crank it open again. It's the nature of the beast. So here I am struggling with this. But like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to get it into a cup. And I'm going to pour, about, whatever amount. The other thing is shake it up. If it's been sitting a little bit, make a point to shake it up. If you don't, then this stuff will settle, and the chemicals will, I don't know if the chemicals will separate so much as they'll settle out and they'll layer out. So shake it up, and then I'm just going to pour an amount into a working cup. And this is just so I don't have to keep going back into the pot. And here I'm looking at, okay, how much did I put in there? Great, that's how much I put in there. So screw that back on, then eventually we'll screw it back on, then we'll go back and get part B. Part B doesn't have the same problem. Again, shake it up, pour it in to the cup, and then we'll set it aside. And then that way I can put the big buckets aside, and I can actually just do the work, working out of the cup. And I put too much in here, but it's easier to do that than have to keep going back. And I make a point to try and clean the pour spout each time. Every time I put these things away, it happens. This is not a clean process, so plan to make a mess. So here, I've got my thing. I only need a little bit, right? So I'm going to look at my measuring cup, and I'm going to kind of eyeball how much volume I need. So I've got a mark here. It's like, I'm thinking about half that cup is about what I need. So I'm going to get a Sharpie, and I'm going to mark there and there. So the cup's got a gradient on it. So I'm going at 2 ounces and 4 ounces. So then all we do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to pour a little bit of one part down to the 2 ounce mark. And I mark the cup just because it's easier to see. It's faster and I don't have to keep digging. And then I will take a little bit of part A and I will fill it up to the next mark. See? Yay. Then, now that I have those in, take a stir stick and I start stirring. And literally, I just start stirring. Now, you'll notice I'm wearing gloves. There's a reason I'm wearing gloves. Because invariably, this is messy. You're going to get your hands on stuff first. Some of this resin is going to come off and get on your hands. So just wear the gloves. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't hurt. It's just annoying. So then I'm going to stir it. I'm going to keep stirring until it starts to get warm. Once I start to feel the reaction happening, then, once I start feeling it get warm, I'll know the reaction's happening so I can go ahead and get into, I'll know that it's time to start pouring. This has a 3-minute pot life. That is, see, there, gloves. So it's starting to get warm around here. My shop is also cold, so that kind of played around with the way this stuff works. So I'm stirring a little more than I usually have to for this stuff. But right about now, it's starting to get warm. Once it gets there, the 3-minute working time is kind of optimistic. It depends on how much of it together. The hotter it's allowed to get, the faster this stuff's going to cure. So when you pour it into small pieces, it will cure slower than if you keep it in one big glob. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it into my mold. Now I'm intentionally going to grab something here. So while it's okay, it can sit there for the few seconds it's going to be sitting there while I get what I'm after. So once I get back, because I'm digging it, what I'm digging out is a toothpick. So now I'm just going to pour. Now this is me looking down and I'm just pouring it in. And I'm taking my toothpick, and this has a little undercut at the edge of the mold. So what I'm doing is I'm using the toothpick to kind of break up the surface tension and the air bubbles. And I'm just pouring it into the mold, and I'm kind of using the toothpick to get the resin to sit in the little crevices. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this ring because it's got those little lips and those little hooks. It's going to pour in. Now I noticed as I was doing this, it was already starting to get gloopy. So it was as it warms up and as the resin starts to go, it gets much more viscous. And it's very syrupy. So you can see as I'm pouring here, maybe not, but it's kind of it's gelling up. It's kind of turning into a gel. And as it stays warm and as it warms up more and more, that's what happens. So I just spread it out. And what I'll end up doing there is I'll just kind of use the Q-tip to stab down into the little corner, not Q-tip, but the toothpick to stab down into the little corner. Now, so see, I got a whole bunch left, right? So I'm going to top this one off. I'm going to pour it into the little arm piece that he has. There's off to the side, there's this little tiny thing. And you see the syringes that are back where my head is right now. Sometimes I'll use those to sort of shoot resin in. In this case, it was easier to just use the toothpick to just push the resin down in place, get it into the little crevices and corners and things for what we're doing. This is a little tiny piece, 6 millimeters really. Now, typically I have another mold just sitting around that I could pour my extra stuff into, and you see how it's pouring out. Much like a gel now, it's much less, or it's much more viscous and much heavier. So I tend to have like these rock molds or base molds or whatever that, whatever's left over, I'll use that to pour. Now, if you look, you're going to start to see it's turning white already. And that right there is what you're looking for. That as it becomes, or as it hardens and cures, it goes white. Now you can see it all pretty much isn't, it's just barely moving at this point. It's like a very, very heavy syrup. But if you look in here, that stuff hasn't started turning white yet. So sorry about that. I had a little bit of a glitch in the phone. So you can see it's starting to set up a little bit here, but it's not setting up really well yet in the parts. So what I am going to do, I'm just going to kind of skim off this extra piece. Now you see it's still gloopy and it sticks on my stick. I'm wiping it off on the surface mold, or on the rock mold, I guess is what I call it. So now we're going to sit and watch paint dry. So, I use the mold I poured for, or like here, I can use my cup. Looking at my cup, it tells me pretty much how done it is. So these extra things where I have the extra mold poured, I'll use that as a barometer on where it is and how set up it is and so forth. But, for the most part, this sets up in about, 10 minutes. It says 10 minutes. Because I know these bottles are older, and because it's also cold down here, and because these are small parts, I'm going to figure it's going to take a little bit longer. So now's the waiting part where I just literally sit and wait. At this point, when I'm doing this project, I just sort of wander off and go do other things, which is what I'm going to do here. And using editing, I'm going to go ahead and skip aside. Now here you can see that one piece is starting to set up. It as it warms up and as it sets up, you will see that go all white. So we're going to wait, and we're just going to let that skip ahead and do its thing. And as it continues and as it finishes, we'll sit and wait, or sit and watch, and I will sort of edit ahead, skip ahead to while this cooks up, and come back. Okay, so I'm coming back to this. The rock mold is fine. It's all set up. See, look, there's rock. Yay. Pulling out the pieces from this. This is my, this is a good barometer. It gives you an idea what we're looking at. But when I look at the mold, it's still a little tacky. So we're going to keep going. We're going to give it a little bit more time. Some more time's gone by, and now it's pretty much ready. So all we do is we just pop it out. As you can see, it came out okay. It's a little soft still, and so I probably pulled this out a little bit sooner than I mentioned, like I said before. But I'm looking in. So what it was is the mount for the gun didn't show very well. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull out the arm that we cast, and there, the arm. It's pretty soft, but it's an arm. So now I'm pulling this thing out. As you can see how it's deforming. See how it's soft and mushy. So right there, I should stop. I should decide I'm going, but then when I went to do it, I realized that the flange wasn't back in the thing, so I just went ahead and pulled it out. So now, as you can see, I can shape it still. It's still soft. It's still pliable. So this is a bad cast, or a bad pour, whatever you want to call it. Now, if you look also, the little teeth, the little flanges that we were after, they didn't really shape up well. So, okay, we have a problem. So now I can go ahead and I can pull my plastic out of my cup, which I will do, and I just did. And we're going to do it again. We're gonna cast this a second time. When I look at this, and this is what you do. You fiddle around with it and you figure out what you need to play with. So I'm going in. I need my stick because we're gonna do that again. So I've cleaned off the extra pour, and now I'm just gonna go ahead. I need to get new gloves so that I can do this again. Because remember what I said: wear gloves because it does make a difference. It doesn't hurt. It's just irritating to your skin if you get this stuff on it. So now I make sure everything's clear. And really, what my problem is that piece right here. So there's that hole, which is the gun mount for the on the turret, or not on the turret, but the hatch. So now I'm reloading I'm going to go ahead and reload my cup. Reload my other cup. And yeah, you don't need to see me measuring them out because I needed to see what I was doing. So we get those put in. There we are. And now we'll start stirring again. And you're going to see, you probably aren't going to see, but you'll see it get cloudy and then it'll go clear again. And that's just the nature of this particular resin. I really like this stuff because of how fast it works. For the most part, I don't deal with super detailed parts there. You see how it's nice and clear now? That's what I'm looking for. If you were going to add color and you wanted to color this would be where you'd put it in. You'd drop this in here. Like the So Strong Black or whatever. I may do at some point one of these where I just drop that in. You just put a drop in. Now, at this point now, it's starting to feel warm, and that's what I'm after. So when I pour this, I'm going to want to pour this right as it starts to warm up so that it's still very fluid. So here I go. I'm going to pour it back into it. I'm going to pour it into the turret ring first because I found that when I poured it in there the first time, it was a little viscous, and maybe that's why it didn't go into the flanges. And so now I'm pouring it into both. So I've poured it into both pieces. So now I'm taking my toothpick, and I'm finding that hole where where those air bubbles are forming and preventing the resin from getting in there. And I'm fiddling with it. I'm making sure that I'm getting that resin in as much as possible. And I see air bubbles coming out, which is good. You know, that's sort of your clue that the bubbles are, or that that undercut is going to fill up with resin. You get that air bubble out, that air bubble comes up through the resin, then you're pretty comfortable that the resin got down into that piece. So, and I'm fiddling with it. I'm just going in, pushing it in, encouraging air to get out, all those fun things. And then just, pushing it around, just making a nice flat surface. And I'm just going to add a little bit more here. I'd rather have a bigger plug from the mount point than, have too little. So I'll grab my other rock face. Yeah. Which rock do I want? And actually, I have another model, or another cast. There we go. Another mold that I want to pour this into. So I'm gonna. There's a diode that I'm working on, off to the side. And I want this part. So I figured I'd just go ahead and pour that in there. And this is actually doing a slush cast. This is a big open piece. You're not seeing me fiddle with it, but. So now we're waiting, and we will wait for this stuff to set up, and then we'll come back and see what it looked like when we pulled it out. Okay, so we've given it a chance to set up. Now it's much, much harder than it is. I let it sit for a while. And so we're ready. Let's pop this guy out and take a look. So we pull it out, and that's exactly what we're looking for. We have our gun mount, our machine gun mount on the side of the hatch. So once I can get it to focus here for me. There we go, much better. Even got a little indentation for the piece to go in. Awesome. And so now let's pop this out. You can see it's not wanting to deform like it did the first time, and that's because I let it sit longer. And there we go. Yay! There's our flanges. That's what we're after. It's a little bit, it's got a little bit extra flash on it than we had on the first one, but who cares? This is what we're looking to do. So there's a first cast, there's a second. So, just keep trying and work things out. But there we go. That's what we did. This is how we poured it. This is what we got our results and how we adapted to the curveballs that we got. I hope this is helpful and you find it useful. Thank you.